At the beginning, Masaomi thought about the girl known as the White Rose Princess, beautiful like Snow White, yet thorned like a rose. She let no one approach her, and allowed no one to get close. That was the nickname given to Arasagawa Yuki. However, Masaomi smiled to himself because he knew exactly how to make her reveal her sweet side. The scene then shifted to Yuki sitting quietly at her desk, reading a book. A boy approached and asked Arasugawa if she wanted to go see a movie with him sometime. Without even looking up from her book, Yuki calmly asked who he was and pointed out that he was not sitting in his assigned seat. The boy introduced himself as Segawa and reminded her that they had sat next to each other during an elective class the other day. He explained that he was looking for someone to watch a movie with and showed her a pamphlet. Still reading her book, Yuki simply replied that she was not interested. Trying to continue the conversation, Segawa assumed she was not interested in romance movies and asked what kinds of movies she liked instead. Yuki apologized, closed her book, and admitted that she had expressed herself poorly. Then, with a completely emotionless expression, she clarified that when she said she was not interested, she meant him, not the movie. The students nearby were left speechless as Segawa quietly walked away in defeat. As Masaomi walked through the hallway, he overheard several students commenting that there was another victim. They wondered if anyone in the entire school could ever win over the White Rose Princess. Masaomi simply smiled before calling out to Arasugawa. Yuki immediately twitched in surprise. As he casually mentioned the movie from before, Yuki suddenly blushed, grabbed his hand, and hurriedly dragged him away. The scene then shifted to the top floor near the rooftop entrance. With a flustered expression, Yuki demanded to know what he was thinking. Masaomi looked confused and asked what she meant. Blushing furiously, Yuki shouted, telling him not to play dumb. She reminded him that they had promised he would not tell anyone they had gone to see a movie together and that he had specifically promised to keep it a secret. Masaomi calmly replied that he knew and assured her that he would not tell anyone. Yuki immediately demanded to know what that had been about just now and pointed out that there had been people around. Masaomi then explained that he had actually been referring to student council work. He had only wanted to ask whether the Film Research Club's request to repair their DVD player had already received its approval stamp. Yuki immediately froze before awkwardly repeating, "The Film Research Club." Masaomi realized she had completely misunderstood the situation. Embarrassed, Yuki complained that he should have said that sooner because it had been incredibly misleading. Masaomi laughed it off and reminded her that their friendship was supposed to remain a secret from everyone in their class. Still blushing, Yuki warned him to be careful because she hated strange rumors spreading about her. Masaomi smiled and admitted that he personally did not mind. Yuki immediately replied that she definitely minded. Masaomi then reflected on the secret that only he knew. Everyone else saw Yuki as a cool and untouchable girl, but he knew the real her. He knew her favorite movies, her favorite animals, her ideal type of man, and even her embarrassing belief that her modest chest would eventually grow bigger in the future. After all, she was the woman he would marry in the future. He then jokingly wondered if she had already been won over. The scene then shifted to the year 2023. It was nighttime, and inside an apartment, the now adult Yuki quietly read a light novel while Masaomi relaxed on the sofa with a cup of coffee. As he watched her happily reading, Yuki noticed him staring and immediately became embarrassed. She asked why he was looking at her like that. Masaomi smiled and admitted that she simply looked like she was enjoying herself so much. Yuki excitedly agreed and declared that the romantic comedy light novel was amazing. She felt as though she had wasted so many years by not reading it sooner. She enthusiastically moved beside him and began praising the heroine's emotional expressions. Then, after letting out a satisfied sigh, she admitted that she wished she could have experienced a high school life like the one in the novel. Masaomi gently asked whether her own high school life had really been that awful. Yuki reminded him that she had already told him before. She considered it the biggest dark chapter of her life. Back then, she had nothing but pointless pride and spent all of her time studying. Masaomi quietly imagined her looking like a stereotypical nerd wearing glasses. Yuki continued by saying that she had never experienced anything that truly felt like youth. Masaomi reminded her that she had still graduated at the top of Shichibo Academy. Yuki admitted that she had, but she believed there were far more important experiences she had missed, such as getting a boyfriend. Masaomi pointed out that she had been incredibly popular and had rejected every confession she received. Hugging a pillow, Yuki explained that boys had simply seemed childish to her back then. Looking back on it now, she wondered which one of them had actually been the childish one. Masaomi smiled warmly, and admitted that he was actually glad she had experienced that kind of youth. Yuki looked at him in confusion and asked why. He gently answered that because of that, he had been able to marry her. Yuki instantly turned bright red, called him an idiot, and threw the pillow at him. A moment later, however, she quietly hugged him instead. While blushing, she admitted that she wished he had been there during her high school days. Masaomi gently patted her head before asking whether she would have dated him if he had confessed back then. Without hesitation, Yuki answered that she absolutely would not have. She believed she would have rejected him on the spot. Masaomi internally called her cruel. Yuki laughed before telling him that if he ever somehow ended up traveling back to the past, she wanted him to confess to her no matter how many dozens or even hundreds of times it took. She then kissed him and asked him to teach her what youth was really like. The scene then shifted again. An alarm clock suddenly rang. Masaomi slowly woke up, stretched, and greeted the morning. As he reached toward the other side of the bed, he realized Yuki was gone. Looking around the room, he froze. He realized he was inside his old bedroom at his parents' house. Confused, he wondered why he was back there and decided to wash his face first. As he walked downstairs, he noticed how incredibly light his body felt. While washing his face, he realized that his shoulders were no longer stiff and that he actually had an appetite. Normally, every morning his stomach felt heavy and he had no desire to eat. When he looked into the mirror, however, he completely froze. Touching his face, he realized he had a young face, smooth skin, and no stubble. It looked exactly like he was back in middle school. He immediately denied the possibility, reminding himself that he was a 30-year-old adult. Then he looked again. After slamming both hands against the sink, he realized the truth. No matter how many times he checked, he had become his middle school self again. His 180-centimeter height was gone. His stubble had disappeared. Even the muscles he had spent countless hours building at the gym were nowhere to be found. He wondered whether everything was just a dream. Still confused, he left his room. The moment he opened the door, his mother cheerfully greeted him, "Good morning." His father lazily complained that he did not want to go to work. Masaomi froze in disbelief. His mother looked much younger than before. His father, who had already passed away in the future, was standing right in front of him alive. Shaking with disbelief, he asked whether they had somehow become younger. His mother simply smiled and joked that she had only changed her toner. Masaomi realized this was far beyond something that simple. Then he noticed the newspaper. The date printed on it read, Tuesday, the 25th of November, 2008. Looking toward the television and then his cell phone, he finally realized the impossible. He had traveled 15 years into the past. To confirm it was real, he pinched his own cheek. He then organized his thoughts. He concluded that he had time-leaped 15 years into the past and was currently a third-year middle school student once again. For the time being, he decided to stay home by pretending to be sick. Afterward, he spent the entire day desperately searching for a way back to his original timeline. None of his attempts worked. Eventually, he went outside to clear his head, and before he realized it, evening had arrived. The scene then shifted to a bridge. Standing there alone, Masaomi wondered whether he would ever be able to return to the present. Thinking about Yuki, he quietly called out her name. Then another thought crossed his mind. He climbed onto the railing and considered something he had never tried before. Since time travel in stories was often triggered by near-death experiences, he wondered if jumping into the river might send him back to the future. After a cold breeze blew past him, he laughed bitterly and dismissed the idea. It was ridiculous. The river was freezing in the middle of winter, and if he actually died, everything would simply be over. Just as Masaomi decided to head home and think of another way, he suddenly heard a girl's footsteps approaching. She let out a small puff of air before asking what he was doing. The familiar voice instantly caught him off guard. He turned toward her in shock and saw a young girl standing there. At first, he thought she was someone he had never seen before. Yet her voice and expression were unmistakable. Images of his future wife flashed through his mind. He immediately climbed down from the railing and quietly called out her name. Confused, the girl asked how he knew who she was and wondered whether they had met before. Masaomi smiled through tears. It really was Yuki. She was standing right in front of him as a middle school student. Overwhelmed with emotion, he covered his face, realizing that becoming younger had apparently made him cry much more easily. Yuki stepped closer before warning him that if he was planning to commit suicide, he should stop. She bluntly pointed out that falling from that height probably would not kill him. Instead, he would most likely just break both of his legs. Masaomi immediately denied that he had been trying to kill himself. Yuki guessed that he was probably suffering from entrance exam stress. He quickly insisted that she was completely wrong. After thinking for a moment, Yuki shrugged and claimed she did not actually care anyway. As she absent-mindedly scratched the back of her hand, Masaomi smiled. He remembered that future Yuki had always scratched the back of her hand whenever she felt anxious. Realizing she had possessed that habit since childhood made him laugh. Yuki immediately demanded to know what he found so funny. Masaomi sincerely thanked her for worrying about him. Yuki instantly became flustered and loudly denied it. She insisted that she simply did not want to witness anything unlucky right before her entrance exams. Masaomi understood that she was referring to both falling and failing. Yuki then quietly asked whether he still felt like jumping. Masaomi admitted that he did not. Satisfied with the answer, she simply told him to hurry home. As she began walking away, Masaomi quickly stopped her. She turned around and asked what he wanted. He wanted to tell her countless things. After all, they had spent years talking together every single day after getting married. But none of those words came out. Instead, he awkwardly asked which high school she planned to attend. Yuki answered that she was applying to Shichibo Academy and explained that she had just returned from touring the school. Masaomi remembered that this perfectly matched everything future Yuki had told him. Yuki asked whether they were finished before continuing on her way. Watching her walk away, Masaomi blushed as he admitted to himself that middle school Yuki was incredibly cute. He wanted to see her again. Then, with a determined expression, he made up his mind and declared that it was settled. The scene then shifted to that night, where Masaomi sat at his desk and picked up his high school application form. Looking at it, he quietly muttered, "Now then." As he stared at the form, he recalled that the high school he had originally graduated from was Miyagi Machi High School. Although he had never gotten a girlfriend there, he had enjoyed spending time with his friends. However, he realized that choosing a different school would completely change the path his life had originally taken. It might even erase his future together with Yuki. Then he remembered what future Yuki had told him. She had asked him that if he ever traveled back to the past, he should confess to her over and over again and teach her what youth was like. At that moment, all of his fear disappeared. He decided that perhaps this time leap existed for the sole purpose of granting Yuki's wish. With newfound determination, he selected Shichibo Academy as his first choice high school. When he reached the section asking for his reason for applying, he confidently wrote, "Because my wife is there." The scene then shifted, and Masaomi thought about private Shichibo Academy, one of the best college preparatory schools in the country. It offered high-quality classes, school rules that respected student autonomy, and extensive support for exceptional students. This place was also Yuki's alma mater, his future wife's school. Standing near the entrance, Masaomi thought that this was where his second run at high school would begin. With a happy expression, he decided that he was going to do everything he had wanted to do. Despite all that enthusiasm, the school announced that the freshman representative was Suzuhara Masaomi. Masaomi responded affirmatively. He then wore a tense expression and thought that taking the top spot on the entrance exam had probably been overdoing it. Standing on the stage, he reflected that he had studied as hard as he could so he could meet Yuki. As a result, he had passed the entrance exam in first place. He had never wanted to stand out, but now that he had been given the job, he might as well do it properly. He cleared his throat and straightened himself. He then began his speech, expressing his gratitude that such a magnificent ceremony had been held for them, and addressing himself and his classmates as students of the Academy's 69th class. The students whispered among themselves, amazed by his speech. One of them pointed out that he was not even looking at any notes. With a smile, Masaomi concluded his address as the freshman representative. The students immediately applauded and cheered. Some of them exclaimed that his speech had been incredible and wondered whether he was seriously a first-year student just like them. Yuki watched him with a tense expression as he bowed. She then blushed and thought that she would not lose next time. The scene then shifted to the classroom. Masaomi thought that a week had passed since the entrance ceremony. A girl called out to Suzuhara and asked him to exchange Naru IDs with her. Another girl joined in and explained that they were thinking of exchanging Naru IDs with everyone in the class. Since they were all classmates, they might as well get to know everyone. Masaomi looked at them and asked if they meant him. They confirmed that they did. Masaomi smiled and said he understood, but internally recognized that it was a lie. For starters, they had not actually been going around talking to everyone in the class. More importantly, before the time leap, the moment girls heard about the position he held, they had worn the exact same expressions as the girls who had thrown themselves at him. One of the girls then asked whether he could use infrared. Masami hesitated before apologizing and claiming that he had actually forgotten his phone that day. The other girl reacted with disappointment. Masami promised that he would bring it tomorrow. The first girl accepted his answer cheerfully before they left. The second girl thought that she had managed to turn him down without making things awkward. She then commented that his tendency to forget things made him feel relatable. The first girl agreed. Masami watched them and thought that, honestly, he wanted the contact information of cute high school girls very badly. But he already knew whose contact information he wanted first. The first girl then called out to Arisugawa-san and asked her to exchange narrow IDs. Masami immediately thought of Yuki. With a tense expression, he thought that they were certainly opportunistic. Now they were going after Yuki, the runner-up. One of the girls admired Yuki's silver hair and commented that she had never seen hair like it and that it looked incredibly silky. The other girl tried to touch Yuki's hair and called her seriously adorable, saying that she looked like a doll. Yuki immediately smacked the girl's hand away and coldly told her not to touch her. The girl was stunned before apologizing. Yuki then clarified that if they meant her phone, she had not brought it. The girl was surprised and asked whether she had forgotten it. Yuki firmly explained that she had not forgotten it. She simply had no need for a phone in a place meant for studying. The girl questioned whether it was not inconvenient to go without one. Yuki calmly replied that it was not really a problem. Another girl then suggested going to karaoke after school, saying it would be a good way for them to get to know each other. Yuki immediately refused. She explained that stopping at an entertainment venue on the way home was against school rules. The girl was surprised that it was against the rules and told Yuki that she did not have to be so scared, since it was fine as long as they did not get caught. Yuki corrected her, explaining that it was not about being afraid of getting caught. As a student of the academy, she would simply abide by the established rules. That was all. The girl awkwardly accepted her answer and suggested that maybe they could go another time. After they left, Masami thought that he could understand why the future Yuki had called this period the dark chapter of her life. Yuki let out an irritated sound. Masami thought that she really was difficult to deal with. Other students commented that she did not go easy on girls either, and said that it was the White Rose Princess for them. Masami thought that he already knew this. However, Yuki stood out a lot, and she was popular. She was as beautiful as Snow White, yet she had thorns like a rose. That was what had earned her the nickname White Rose Princess. Only a week into school, quite a few people had already been pricked by those thorns. Despite Yuki's dignified appearance, she somehow made people want to protect her, and only Masami knew how adorable Yuki could be when she became clingy. He wondered what he should do. Seeing Yuki, he decided that it was about time he did something. If he approached her the wrong way, he would end up like all her previous victims. If only he had some sort of opening. At that moment, he noticed Yuki suddenly startle. Masami wondered what was wrong. Yuki wore a tense expression and began rummaging through her bag. Masami immediately realized what that panicked look meant. He remembered how she had once looked exactly like that after forgetting her wallet on a date. That was it. She had forgotten her textbook. The next class was world history, and the teacher was the type who called on students by name. Without her textbook, Yuki would not be able to answer. Masami noticed that she was secretly reading a book and thought that she should not try to pass off her Japanese textbook as the correct one. She could simply ask the person beside her to let her look at their textbook. But with a knowing smile, Masami thought that Yuki's pride probably would not allow her to do that. He took out his own textbook, stood up, and walked over to her. Yuki looked tense as he approached. Masami asked whether she had forgotten her textbook and showed her his. He told her that he would lend it to her. Yuki accepted it hesitantly and asked why he was doing that. Just then, the classroom door slid open. The teacher told everyone to take their seats because class was about to start. The teacher then noticed Masami and asked what was wrong. Masami explained that he was feeling a little sick and asked whether he could go to the infirmary. The teacher questioned whether he was really feeling sick and glared at him, asking whether he was trying to skip class. Masami insisted that he was not. The teacher then noticed the badge on his tie. After seeing it, the teacher accepted his explanation and allowed him to go. Masami thanked the teacher and left. The teacher then instructed everyone to open their textbooks to page 12. Yuki remained behind, blushing. The scene then shifted to the hallway. Masami thought that the Shichibo badge had come in handy too. The gold Shichibo badge was proof that he was the top student in his year. The teacher had probably figured that the top student would not skip class without a good reason. Masami decided that he might as well take a nap in the infirmary. The scene then shifted to the infirmary. Masami entered and politely called out. However, when he looked ahead, he saw someone standing there. It was Yuki. She told him to come with her for a second. The scene then shifted to the rooftop door. Yuki held the textbook near Masayami's face and angrily demanded to know what he was trying to do. Masayami took the textbook and asked what she meant. He explained that he had only been trying to help. She had looked like she was in trouble, so he thought he would help her. Yuki told him not to play dumb. She pointed out that he had also lied about feeling sick. Masami internally realized that he should have known he could not fool Yuki. He then asked whether his actions had helped her. Yuki reacted awkwardly before insisting that it did not mean she owed him anything. Masami questioned why she thought she owed him anything, and insisted that he had not. Yuki angrily interrupted him, and explained that everyone had been like that. Ever since middle school, boys had always said things like, "I helped you, so go out with me," or "Give me your contact information in return." It was always something like that. Masami found that insulting, and said he did not appreciate being lumped in with guys like those. Yuki asked whether he was saying he was different. Masami admitted that if she was asking whether he had an ulterior motive, internally, he acknowledged the truth. He wanted to get closer to her. He then admitted that he did have one. Yuki recoiled slightly. Masami quickly added that he would not try anything, though. Yuki covered herself with her hand and called the situation unbelievable. She had thought he was not that type. She then glanced at his badge. While blushing slightly, she admitted that she had thought he was like her, and that he had devoted himself entirely to his studies. Masami responded that high school only lasted 3 years. He believed she should enjoy all of it by having fun and falling in love. Yuki clenched her fist and insisted that she did not have time for any of that. She sighed and finally told him that if he was going to do it, he should hurry up. Masami asked what she meant. Yuki looked confused and asked whether he had not been planning to confess to her. Masami was stunned and asked how she had gotten that idea. Yuki asked whether she was wrong. She explained that every boy before him had confessed after things played out like this. Masami internally thought that was far too reckless. For reference, he decided to ask her something. He asked what would happen if he confessed to her right then and there. Yuki immediately answered that she would turn him down, of course. She did not need a boyfriend. Masayami thought about her answer for a moment before smiling. He then extended his hand and suggested that they start as friends instead. Yuki was stunned and repeated the word, friends. Masayami assured her that being friends should be okay. Yuki stared at him and pointed out that he had just admitted to having an ulterior motive. Masayami asked whether he had actually said that. Yuki criticized his conveniently selective memory. Masayami then added that he was the type who would rather be confessed to than confess himself. Yuki reacted with mild surprise and asked if that was really the case. She then turned away and told him that if that was how he felt, he would never get to date her. She explained that there was no way she could ever fall for him. While blushing, she finished with an irritated "Himph." Before walking away, Masayami watched her leave and quietly reacted. Internally, he thought that despite everything she had just said, it really did happen. He wished the future Yuki could have heard what she had just said. He then opened the rooftop door and stepped outside. Letting out a breath of relief, he thought that when he had first met Yuki, he had never imagined that they would eventually end up married either. The scene then shifted to the past. Yuki introduced herself politely as Arisugawa Yuki. Her father then turned toward Masami and asked what he thought, before making a disturbing proposal involving financial support and control over Yuki's future. Masami was left facing an extremely unsettling situation.
By the way, if you enjoyed the video, maybe consider liking and subscribing, pretty please?